The sun was high over Route 66, the kind of afternoon where the heat dances off the asphalt and even the wind seems too tired to blow. At the edge of a small-town diner parking lot, a group of bikers leaned against their Harleys, the chrome gleaming like liquid fire. They weren't a gang, just brothers in leather vests who met every Sunday to share coffee, stories, and a little peace from the chaos of life. Among them was Mike, a former Marine who had seen too much and said too little. Inside the diner, a frail old man sat by the window, a white cane resting against his chair. His head was tilted slightly, as if he were listening to the world breathe. His name was Walter. 87 years old, a Korean War veteran and blind. Every Sunday, Walter came to this diner, ordered 1 cup of black coffee and apple pie, and sat in that same booth. Nobody knew why, but everyone respected it. That day, though, peace had a crack running through it. A young man walked in, barely 20, with a phone in his hand and arrogance dripping from every step. His name was Troy, a wannabe TikTok star chasing virality like it was oxygen. He scanned the room for something, someone, to turn into content. His followers loved chaos, and he was addicted to the sound of notifications more than the sound of his own conscience. When his eyes landed on Walter, his lips curled into a grin. An old man. Blind. Vulnerable. Perfect bait for views. He turned his camera on and whispered, "Yo, watch this. This'll go crazy." He approached Walter's table, pretending to trip and spill water across it. The old man flinched, confused. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Troy said, loud enough for his camera to pick up. "Didn't see you there." "Guess you didn't see me either, huh?" He laughed, his tone sharp and cruel. The old man managed a faint smile, still trying to be kind. "It's all right, son," Walter said softly. "Accidents happen." But Troy wanted more. He wanted shock value. He leaned closer, mocking. "You fought for this country, huh, old man? What's it like being useless now?" He waited for a reaction, a flicker of anger, something raw he could post. When he got nothing but calm silence, frustration replaced amusement. And then it happened. With the camera still rolling, Troy slapped the old man across the face. The sound cracked through the diner like thunder. Cups froze midair. Conversations died. The old man didn't cry out. He just reached up, touching his cheek in disbelief. For a few seconds, no one moved. And then the silence shattered. From the parking lot, chairs screeched. The door burst open, and 40 bikers stepped inside like a wave of judgment wearing black leather and steel. Mike was at the front, his eyes locked on Troy. The boy stumbled backward, his phone still in hand, still live. "Please," he started, but the word died as Mike grabbed the phone and ended the stream. "You think it's funny to hit a blind man?" Mike's voice was low, steady, more terrifying than a shout. It was a joke. A prank. I didn't mean. A prank? Another biker, Tank, stepped closer. "You think disrespecting a veteran is content?" Troy's bravado dissolved. His hand shook. "I just wanted views." Mike looked at Walter, who sat quietly, his fingers tracing the edge of his coffee cup. The red mark on his cheek stood out like a wound against his pale skin. Something in Mike's chest twisted. He turned to the group. "Let's show this kid what respect looks like." But instead of violence, something everyone expected, the bikers did something different. Mike took Troy outside, right to the flagpole beside the diner. The wind had picked up, tugging at the old stars and stripes above them. "You want to make a video?" Mike said. "Fine. You're gonna make a real one. One worth watching." He handed Troy a rag and a bucket of water. "You're gonna clean every bike here. Then you're gonna walk that man home. You're gonna listen to every story he wants to tell. And you're gonna post that, if you've got the guts." Troy's mouth opened, ready to argue, but when he met Mike's eyes, he saw something there that broke him, a disappointment so deep it felt heavier than anger. So he nodded. And that's how the punishment began. For hours, under the blazing sun, Troy watched the motorcycles. His hands ached, his knees burned from kneeling on hot pavement, and sweat soaked his clothes. The bikers didn't taunt him. They just watched in silence, like fathers teaching a son a lesson too important to speak aloud. Occasionally, one would hand him water or just a hose, small acts of silent guidance. When the last bike gleamed like glass, Mike gestured toward Walter. "Now take him home." Walter smiled faintly when Troy approached. "You must be the young man who likes to make videos," he said gently. "Yes, sir," Troy murmured, his voice cracking. I messed up." Walter nodded, offering his hand. "Then walk with me. Maybe you can tell me what's so special about these videos." So they walked, one blind in another way. At first, Troy was quiet, guilt twisting in his stomach. But Walter had a way of making silence comfortable. After a few blocks, Troy began to talk. About fame. About feeling invisible without it. About how his father had left when he was 12, and how the internet became the only place people seemed to notice him. Walter listened, his hand steady on Troy's arm. "You know," he said after a while, "I lost my sight when I was 25. Shrapnel took it. For years, I hated the darkness. Then I realized the only thing worse than losing your sight is losing your vision." Troy frowned. "What's the difference?" Walter smiled. "Sight helps you see what's in front of you. Vision helps you see what matters." Something inside Troy cracked open. They reached Walter's small home. A worn little place with a flag out front and a porch that creaked with every step. Walter invited him in for tea. Inside, Troy saw medals on the wall, photos of young men in uniforms, and a single picture of a woman holding Walter's hand. "My wife," Walter said softly, "passed 20 years ago. I still talk to her every night. I tell her what I saw that day through other people's eyes." He chuckled. "Today, I'll tell her about a foolish young man who's starting to see things clearer." Troy felt his throat tighten. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Walter reached across the table, finding his hand. "Don't be sorry, son. Be better." That night, Troy sat in his car for hours, staring at his phone. His finger hovered over the delete account button, but then he remembered Mike's words. "Post something worth watching." So he did. He uploaded a new video, not of pranks, not of cruelty, but of that day. The cleaning, the walk, the conversation. He didn't show Walter's face, just his voice. The caption read, "Today I met a man who can't see, but helped me open my eyes." The video spread faster than any prank he'd ever done. Millions watched. Some cried. Some reached out to veterans in their own towns. Others simply said thank you to strangers. Within days, Troy's following doubled, but this time, for the right reasons. He started a series called Vision, where he interviewed veterans, nurses, teachers, and everyday heroes, telling stories that reminded people what decency looked like. A month later, Troy returned to the diner. The bikers were there, same as always. Mike spotted him, stood up, and crossed his arms. "Back for more views?" Troy shook his head. "Back to say thank you." He handed Mike a small envelope. Inside was a check, a donation to a veterans charity, raised from the revenue of that video. Mike looked at him for a long moment, then smiled and clapped him on the shoulder. "Guess you learned something after all." "I did," Troy said. "From all of you, and from him." He turned to Walter's booth, now empty except for a folded American flag resting on the seat. Walter had passed away the week before. The waitress said he went peacefully in his sleep. He told her that his heart felt light again, that he was proud of the world he was leaving behind. Troy sat at that booth for a long time, running his fingers over the flag. Tears blurred his vision, but he didn't wipe them away. They weren't tears of guilt anymore. They were gratitude. He pulled out his phone, recorded one last message. There was a man who taught me that you don't need eyes to see the good in people. You just need heart. Wherever you are, Walter, thank you for giving me mine back. He posted it without hashtags, without edits, without music, just his voice, raw and honest. And it became the most watched video of his life. Months passed, and the world moved on, as it always does. But in 1,000 small ways, that one act of cruelty turned into a ripple of kindness. A high school teacher showed the video to her students. A veteran's home received enough donations to rebuild its roof. A blind support group was formed in Walter's name. And Troy? He never went back to pranks. He used his fame to shine light on others, calling it Walter's Vision. Every Sunday, he still visited that diner. The bikers greeted him not with suspicion, but with brotherhood. Mike would always say, "You're one of us now, kid." And every time, Troy would smile and whisper, "I'm just trying to see the world the way Walter did." And maybe that's what redemption really is, not erasing your mistakes, but transforming them into something beautiful. Because sometimes, the worst thing you do can become the reason someone else finds hope. Sometimes, the slap that shocks the world isn't about pain, it's about awakening. And in that little diner off Route 66, beneath the faded stars and stripes, a blind veteran's legacy lived on, not in medals or monuments, but in the hearts of those who learned to see through kindness. It started with cruelty, ended in compassion, and somewhere in between, humanity found its reflection again. Walter used to say that darkness isn't the absence of light, it's the opportunity for it. And that day, on a dusty road under a setting sun, light found its way through the cracks. Not from the sky above, but from the people below, proving that no matter how blind we are to each other sometimes, we all have the power to see.